Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffee Corner. Today is your episode 132. So today I'm not going to share a reading list with you. I do want to share a very different thing that has something to do with the reading. It's my reading journey, and hopefully my journey, my experience will give you a little bit of inspiration when it comes to picking up a reading habit, especially in English. So first book I've ever read in my life was in university for a course. The book I picked was The Great Gatsby. Back then I thought that I was about Bill Gates, and I thought, okay, I know this guy, I can read the book, I will understand and write a good book report. The more I got into the book, the more confused I got. I was totally lost. I had no idea why this book had nothing to do with Bill Gates. There's no computer, there's no coding, there's nothing. It was back to the old time. I was so lost that I couldn't even finish my book report on time. And then that's when I started to hate reading, in English particularly. The second book I got was from a date. Back then, he bought this book in Hong Kong and then gave it to me as a gift. It's called He's Not That Into You. And funny enough, he was not that into me back then. Anyway, so the book I had, I was trying so hard to read it because I wanted to impress him. And I wanted to say that, look, my English is really good. I can read a book. But it was so painful because I couldn't even understand the title. What does that into you mean? Now I understand, of course. And the whole book was talking about, relationships and boyfriends, girlfriends, and wives and husbands or sorts of things. It was an interesting book, but my purpose there was not really for the reading, but more of for impression on other people. If you ask me to read it now, I probably could finish the book in a day, but it's just not my type. Sometimes I just realize it's not my type. Anyway, that was my second book. I still remember it. The third book, actually, it jumped really far away. In 2019, the book I read was The Hate You Gave, and I really appreciate myself for picking that book because I didn't know why that book hit me. So I start to read it. I finished everything in 3 days. Remember, back then my English was not that strong, so finishing a book in 3 days was quite challenging. And I was reading it while eating, while I was in the bathroom, while I was monitoring learners, and I just couldn't put the book down. And I loved it so much because the language was very simple and the story was very appealing. And it got me hooked, and I kept reading. That's when I forgot about the language, but more focused on the content. And then I started to realize reading is really pleasant. Reading English book is not that painful because I'm not learning in language. I'm trying to understand a story. So I really thank that book for helping me build this reading habit in the long run. After that, I wanted to keep this momentum, so I started to pick a random book. I really started to pick a random book. I had no idea. So I picked the book. It was called When Life Gives You Lululemons. I forgot about the whole story, but it was kind of like a Hollywood drama stuff. And I didn't even know what Lululemon was. I was so confused. I was just reading it. Had no cultural reference at all. Now, of course, I know what Lululemon is, but back then when I read that book, I had no idea. But I finished that book and I didn't really like it. But now when I think about the book I read before, could be first, I didn't understand the content. Second, I didn't understand the culture. And then third, my language was not that good. And then number fourth, the most important part, I was not into that book. And then after that book, I started to read memoir or bibliographies, those kind of things, because I, of course, adore great people. And this guy came to my mind. I think I saw a video talking about him being tough, David Goggins. And his book is called Can't Hurt Me. The first half was really good. I was very interested in his childhood, how he grew up, because again, that's part of my topic, and I always wanted to know how people grew up into what they are now. But the second half was more of, you got to do it, you can do it, and then those kind of crazy cult-ish thing, so I kind of lost interest, so I didn't finish that book. But again, that's when I realized I have an ability to tell if this book is my type or not, and that shows me my reading ability has grown stronger, and I was really happy. After that, the book I recommended, I even made a video about it. It was called Elevation. Funny enough, when I was reading Elevation, it was on my Kindle. I finished that. I loved it. I cried. I even cried on the bus. I still remember. But then after that COVID hit and I got a paper version, I read the paper one again. I cried again, and I actually made a video about that book long time ago. If you think about that, it has been a while. So anyway, that book was short, nice, sweet. Language was simple and beautiful. I think that book has taught me to appreciate the language, the art of the language, that you realize the way you talk about stories and the way you express your ideas is just amazing. It's beautiful. It can be simple but stunning. That's when I started to really appreciate the language part and also the content at the same time, not only focusing on content. But again, I didn't put myself in that position that I had to learn the language. I had to master the grammar, the vocabulary. I told myself, you're reading, this is your hobby. You should enjoy it. You should not force yourself to learn things if you don't want to. I think learning is something that has to naturally happen. If it doesn't, you're going to feel painful. And then after that, somehow I came across this book called The Red Notice. I loved it. I bought the book. I read it on my Kindle and I bought the book and read it again. It was a cliffhanger back then. I just wanted to finish and to know what happened to him. And especially knowing that that was based on true story. He was talking about all the financial crisis, how he was haunted by a Russian government, those kinds of things, and a lot of connections there and here. I was so amazed. And then after that, I went to look for some interviews he did and presentations he did and start to dig more. And that's when I learned more content, more topics beyond the book itself. And I realized my English overall has improved a lot, not only about the language itself, but also the thinking, the way I think. I really like the book and I recommend it to everybody. I think I made a video about it. So if you can go back and dig through, and you probably will find a couple of videos about me talking about books like that. In 2022, that's when I really wanted to keep going, and because I now have this ability and have this interest that can drive me to read more, I started to read really a variety of books there. And I started with the bullet journal method. I loved it. I used it, but I didn't finish the book because I just realized that those self-help books are not just my type. I think I know it, and also those kind of things that you can watch YouTube videos, you can Google it, you can learn in many ways. You don't have to really read a book to do it. And I feel like I got into that kind of rabbit hole that I started to feel I had to read it to improve my language. Not I read it because I want it. So that book, I kind of just gave up. I felt really bad. I couldn't finish that. I felt frustrated because I couldn't finish that as well. But I had to tell myself that you're going to find the book you really want. And after that, for a while, I found a second book. And the second book is now still my favorite, my top one book. It's called Educated. I made a lot of videos about that book. And I wrote articles about that book, how I felt. I just felt so resonated. But the funny thing is, here is the punchline. You love the book, you don't know it until you get into it. It took me 6 months to get into that book. I remember the first 3 pages took me 2 weeks. I still remember. I just could not. I hate when they have so much description there. And I hate when their language is just kind of like flowy and useless and lightweighted. And I just could not get into it. Somehow, because I had so much time due to COVID, and I said, okay, I'm just give it another try. After 6 months, and I started to really read it, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down. It was so good. I felt resonated. I was crying with her, and I was growing with her. That was a big book for me. For the first time, I read a very big book, and I loved it. I made a lot of notes. I read a lot. I think because of this book, I started to realize reading and writing are together. You read, you think, you have thoughts, you start to jot them down, and you improve your thoughts, you improve your logic and thinking, and then you start to talk about it. It's the input to output and output to input kind of thing. I really appreciate this book, and every time I see people comment on this book, how terrible it is or anything, I would say I love it for many reasons. I just really appreciate this book. And after that, I watched every single interview she did. And I love how she talks, and I love her humor, and love her talent. I just think she's a wonderful person. I learn a lot from her. And because of her, I watched so many interviews, and my English and my listening have improved a lot. This is like a cycle that you do it, you love it, you want to do more, and you love it more, and you do more. And then my English just got better and better, and then I wanted to do more of reading, more of writing, and that's when I started to have my column on Bilibili. I wrote a lot just to practice my writing. And in 2021, because of the books I read before, I thought I had the ability to read more. So I was so eager to read. I started 12 books in 2021, and especially we were still in lockdown, so I thought 12 books and nothing, I would read it. I started 12 books, I only finished one book, painfully. The book was Anxious People, and everybody said it was so beautiful, it was really nice. I just could not. I tried my best. I said, I started 12, I need to at least finish one. So I finished that one. Maybe it wasn't just not my type. I really didn't like it. It kind of pulled me back, and I started to not wanting to read because of that experience. But again, it's like when you start to read, you pick a wrong book, and then you feel discouraged because you don't like it, and then you start to think maybe that's my problem, maybe because my English is not good, maybe I just don't understand anything. Why reading is so difficult? Maybe you just don't like that book. Maybe that book is not your type, and maybe you just can't get into it. It's not your fault. And because of that, I stopped reading. That was the last book I read in 2021. In 2022, I started 7 books and only finished one. It's called Freezing Order. I loved it. I bought the book. I read it. I was really happy. But because I was pregnant and my mind was not there, I just could not focus on anything. All I wanted was my phone, so I couldn't read too much. In 2023, I only read one book, and I probably didn't even finish because I was so busy dealing with my toddler, and then I had a postpartum depression, and my mom came to help. It was a lot of things going on, just I didn't have a time for myself to read anything. The only book, I couldn't even remember what book I started. But again, remember, so this is going to be a break point. In 2023, 2024, that line, before that, I still hadn't found what I really like, what kind of books I would dive in and read it nonstop. I didn't even clue in that when I don't finish books, not because I cannot finish books, because I'm not interested. People have preferences, right? You like certain things, you don't like certain things. It's very obvious. But when it comes to reading books in another language, sometimes you forget that part. All you focus is on language, grammar, vocabulary, not on the topic or genre or any themes you like. You forget about that, and then you start to pick a wrong book. It takes a very long time to figure out which one you like. So that is 2024. 2024, I read 21 books nonstop. I was reading so fast, and in the very beginning, I started reading Yellowface, and that got me. I really liked it. No, not Yellowface. So the first book I read was Lessons in Chemistry in January. It took me 2 months to finish that book, and then after that, I read Yellowface. And then, funny enough, the Lessons in Chemistry, I thought that book was so good, and I really loved it. It was talking about feminists, and then talking about women's rights and women power, those kind of things. I thought that was really good. But now thinking back, it was, it's a really nice book, but a bestseller. Fast food kind of books. Good. Anyway, so after that, I read Yellowface. I loved that book. And for that book, I think I finished that book in a month or less than a month. I forgot. And then I read Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. That was a very small book I got. I don't know where I saw that, but I bought that book. I liked it. Again, it was quite difficult for me to start, but I finished that in 2-3 weeks. And then I found my type. I found my tea. I read nonstop, literally book after book. I started with None of This Is True, Kill for Me, Kill for You, then She Was Gone, and then all sorts of things are true crime thrillers and murders and those kind of. I just love them. And I realized if I think about the podcasts I listen to, those are all true crimes. And well, because I like them. So that's why when I read books like that, I like them. I was flying through all the books. That was probably the most books I've ever read in my whole life. And I did not think about anything. I was just going through it. And my thought was in English. My expression was in English. Everything was in English. My English was really, really good in 2024 just because the amount of books I read there. But that has taught me that you just need to find the right book you like, and you start to pick up the pace, start to pick up the habit, and then you can continue to read more. You build the habit. Now in 2025, I want to shift to a different focus, a different theme. I can do it. And I started 2 books about true crime, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this topics. I want to switch to something different. Then I read Becoming Bulletproof, and it was really good. I still talk about it and made videos about it. And I was like, okay, now this is kind of self-help, but not kind of self-help because she was still talking about her own experience. I like memoir. So I told myself I'm going to start to read bibliographies or memoirs. And I read the book, The Worlds I See. I loved the book. It was a little bit difficult to read, but I loved the book. I was okay, this is really good. And then I want to go on and read another one, Great Women. I want to read books about women, how wonderful they are. And I started a book called The Notorious RBG, and I loved that book. I started in 2021. I never finished that book. And the comment I had on that book says, this is a great story, but not well written. I want to slap my face. Like, who are you? How dare you see that? You don't even know, and you have a comment on a book says it was not well written. It was so funny. I really flying through the book. It was beautiful. I was learning a lot of things, and I start to realize I just kind of had a vague memory when I was reading that back in 2021, and I start to realize that back then I skipped a lot of cases and briefings there because I did not understand, and it was kind of boring. And now when I read it again, I did not skip anything. I was really into it. I was learning the cases. I was learning the principles and decisions and everything. I said, this is a huge difference. This is how I realize I've changed a lot. I've improved a lot. 2021, I wasn't able to fully comprehend the book in many ways, not just because of language. Now I'm more mature, have better language, have a better ability, have more experience. I read this book again. I understand more, not because of my language, because I have more to share, to resonate with. And I love the book, but I kept the comment there just because of that. I thought that was funny. And that's when I made my new goal. This year, I want to go back and finish the books I didn't finish before. I just want to see why. What are the 2 reasons I couldn't finish the books now? And then I started a book. It's called Money for Blood. It was also a book that I've been on my shelf for a very long time. I started, and I was so into it. I felt amazed by the whole story, how biotech companies design or develop medicines and then make money, those kind of things. I probably didn't understand that because I didn't know those kind of things back then. But now I'm exposed to all sorts of stories and news and everything. I understand. I kind of clicked. And because we're talking about, Pfizer and other things, well, I know it because COVID. So I understand how things work now. And I got more into this book because I understand the background information more. But again, if you don't understand, that might be because you're not into it, it's not your type, or you don't have such knowledge to comprehend it, not only because you don't have the language. But that's what I learned, how I learned about this. And the funny thing is, I used to have to finish one book at a time to start another one. But now what I can do is I read one book in the morning and another book at night. They're totally different, but it doesn't really matter because I can completely separate 2 stories and read them, finish them at the same time. But again, it comes a long way to get to where I am right now, to get to what I can can do right now. So reading or anything or listening or anything you want to practice, it comes a long way. There's no shortcut. There's no fast food way for you to, I click it and I watch it in 7 days, I will be able to do it. Everything comes to a long way if you really want to achieve it and have that built in your system. So that's what I want to talk about my reading journey. I don't know if I'm kind of organized or not organized. I really tried my best to make notes and have everything here. But what I want to say is you may not get it at the first place, but you will eventually get it if you continue to do it. Success is based on consistency. If you keep doing it, you keep doing what you're doing, keep the consistency, you will eventually get there. And it takes time. You just need to be patient and do it. That's all I'm gonna say. Hopefully you like this video, and I will kind of organize a list of my books and share that with you soon. Anyway, stay tuned. See you next time. Bye.